Hatching broody hens is never straightforward. It's full of emotional highs and lows. And in this special episode of our series following Uno with her little brood, we have had a tragedy in the flock. But there is good news to follow up. Welcome to English Country Life. My name's Fiona, and together with my lovely husband Hugh, we run a small holding homestead here in Lincolnshire in the UK. Now in this series we have been following Uno, one of our Orpington broody hens, as she incubates, hatches and raises her chicks. Now the wonderful thing about Uno is that she has been an incredible mother, but we do have other broody hens here in our free range field, and you would have seen in the last of the series that Uno had been released from her little maternity unit out into the wider flock. And we featured Jellybean, another one of our broody hens, at that point because she hatched her chicks on exactly the same day. And what was wonderful was that the chicks were running between the two broody hens. Now unfortunately, as what happens with all animals, you can have unexpected deaths. And this is what happened with Jellybean. We have no idea what actually happened with her. I have a routine in the morning where I come out and I have morning hellos and greetings with the broody hens and their chicks, and we have a bit of fuss. I hand feed the chicks so they're socialised with the humans. And then I go and get my morning coffee, and that's exactly what I did on that morning. Went inside, got my coffee, came out just 20 minutes later and found Jellybean unfortunately dead. Now her chicks were happily running around the field at this stage and didn't seem to notice actually that they had lost their brood hen. So our big concern was, what do we do to ensure that these small chicks at 3.5 weeks old are properly cared for? At 3.5 weeks they are not naturally independent from their brood hen, and that's because they still need the warmth of the brood hen at certain times of the day, or when the days are colder, and particularly when the nights are cooler. They don't have enough proper feathers on their body. They still are covered by quite a bit of down, which is not covered by those proper feathers, and that means that they lose heat very, very quickly and need an external heat source, particularly at night, to keep themselves warm. So what we're going to do in this video is take you through the story and show you how we ensured that those chicks were properly cared for and were kept warm overnight. Our concerns with Jellybean's chicks were allayed very, very quickly. We made arrangements for a brooder plate to go into the coop which the young chicks actually lived in, but as it turns out we didn't need to. Uno's chicks had been running between her and Jellybean, and Jellybean's chicks had been running between Jellybean and Uno as well for a number of weeks at this point. So for 3.5 weeks they essentially had shared their broods. That meant when it came to the evening, Jellybean's chicks actually just followed the first available broody hen into the coop. So Uno naturally adopted Jellybean's chicks, and I've actually been asked on social media, didn't the chicks realise, or Uno, didn't she realise she had more chicks, and didn't the chicks realise they had a different brood hen? I'm not entirely sure they did actually. I mean, during the day the youngsters were running around the field and didn't seem to be bothered in the slightest by the fact that Jellybean was no longer with them. And in the evening the only sign we saw of any issues was that 4 of Jellybean's chicks went back to the original coop, but every single other chick that Jellybean had followed Uno into the coop, and it settled down beautifully. Now for that first night we did have to usher those chicks away from Jellybean's coop into Uno's Nestera wagon, but after one night they were settled and that's where they wanted to live. But the story doesn't end there, because behind me you'll see another broody hen. That's not actually Uno, that's another chicken called Orkney. Now when Uno and Jellybean's chicks reached the age of 4 weeks old, Orkney hatched her brood, and at 2 days old we did exactly the same process as we did with Uno that we showed you in part 4 of the series, and we let them out into the wider free range area. Now, something very strange happened, because there is a 4-week gap between Orkney's chicks and Uno and Jellybean's, and that in the chicken world is a huge gap. The size difference in those chicks is enormous. So we expected Orkney to keep her chicks completely separately from Uno with Uno and Jellybean's chicks. That's not what happened. As soon as we let that fencing down and Orkney was out in the wider environment, there were 6 of Uno and Jellybean's chicks defected from the Nistera wagon and moved in with Orkney in the Nistera lodge, and it was just amazing to see them all together. Now, we thought that was a temporary thing and Orkney wouldn't tolerate it because her chicks were so young. But what we found is that actually Orkney has welcomed that integration, and she now runs around with some small chicks and some larger chicks. And what's interesting now is that Orkney's chicks are just over a week old, and Uno and Jellybeans are nearly 5 weeks old, and their ability to move around and be maneuverable and get a little bit of height because they're developing little flight wings is enormously different. But they still hang around together, and Orkney still keeps the extra 6 chicks warm at night in her coop, and it just seems to work. I have to say, this is a very, very unusual circumstance, and in our many years of breeding and breeding Buff Orpingtons, we have never seen an integration with such a large age gap. So Orkney is our star broody of this year. So that's the story of Jellybean's chicks, and they have been cared for beautifully by the other Broody hens in the flock. Now, it has to be said that we did have a backup plan, and when unexpected circumstances happen, the experience we've had over many years has taught us that we need to ensure that we have got proper equipment to support the chicks should the worst happen. So we were expecting to put a brooder plate on an external socket into their coop so that they could be kept warm at night. But our Orpingtons are just amazing. We didn't need to do that. And here you can see Orkney and her tinies with one of Jellybean's larger chicks. And this is phenomenal. It has to be said, in all of our years of chicken keeping and breeding chickens, we have never known this age gap be accepted. So Orkney truly is our absolute prize broody of this year. And if you have enjoyed this video, sorry, I'm totally distracted by how cute these wonderful chicks are. I love them. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, please do give us a thumbs up down below. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, hit subscribe and the bell icon, and you'll be notified of every new video as soon as it goes live. If you've got questions for us, just leave them in the comment section and we will get back to you as soon as we can. But for now, thanks for watching. Come back and see us next time.